discovering is a lot of us ain't listening. We haven't practiced the skill of listening. Something we go through in our courtship, and we go through. We have different process, and we go through. You got transparency and vulnerability. That's a phase that we go through. We talk about investment in other people's interests. But one of the things we talk about is communication. And communication we break down in 3 stages. You have assertiveness, active listening, and making communication catchable. So assertiveness is speaking the truth in love. So what that is when something happens to me, I share the effect, not an assumed intent. So if something happens to me, I go, oh, you don't care about me. No, that's an assumed intent. That person can argue that all day. That's called, you just get ready for argument. You spend like 3 hours on that one because the person knows I didn't intend that. But if I say, when you said that, it hurt, well, that's the effect. They can't argue with that. That's how it affected me. They can say, well, I didn't mean to affect you that way. And then I can go, okay, I understand. Or they can go, too bad, suck it up. You need to get a little tougher. Oh, we can't handle the truth. Okay, now I'm probably going to sit and being upset a little longer, right? Because they've heard the effect and they're disregarding my feelings, right? But sometimes you can share the effect. The person can share what their intent is, and you cannot be listening because you're still focused on the effect. Oh, no. I want you to say, Uncle, pay. I want you to feel my pain. So they're telling you, oh, no, what I was thinking was this, but you ain't even hearing them because you're locked in on what's important to you only, right? And then making communication catchable. Let's go to James 3. All right, again, we're talking about, are you listening? Because we're saying that we've been in some situations where people have come to us, even here at the church, and it's like, well, I just think we should be doing such and such. I don't know why we're not doing that. And me and my wife would be looking confused, like, you don't know why we're not doing that? We share why we're doing that. And then it was like, well, if how are we supposed to follow y'all if y'all don't explain why you're doing such and such? And I'll be sitting there like, man, I know we talked about that. So then I'm tripping on myself because we're the type of people, we don't assume that we know everything or that we're perfect. So we be like, well, maybe we didn't share it. So you go back and you listen to the CD and tapes like that. We did talk about that. Duh, they weren't here. So we're talking about it. So we talked about this on Wednesday, how every session that God has afforded, especially for a new church growing, we're a new family growing together. So we were in England, got on a boat, and came to America to colonize. And so we're establishing a new kingdom in America together as a family. So we all come out of our tents for a meeting and find out what's our next phase. Some people decide they're sleeping in their tent. Some people decide, man, that's not important. So then, some months go by and they notice there's some people missing. Where they at? Oh, no. They built the house over here. This church, man, that's a lot of land. How'd they get that land? Well, we distributed the land on Wednesday. Wednesday of last week, where was you at? Oh, I was tent sleep. Oh, yeah, and we've established our government. We have different people in positions. Well, I don't understand. I think I would be better suited at that position. Yeah, well, we established that at the meeting Wednesday. Where was you at? Well, I don't understand why we're doing that. I think there's a better way to do it. Actually, your way is a good idea. Just one problem. We got everybody's input on Friday. Where was you at? So you're judging what we're doing, but you wasn't there when we planned to do it. You don't understand what we're doing, but you weren't there when we got all the information. You feel that you've missed out on this opportunity, but you weren't there when all the opportunities was given. And so we've discovered that. Like, okay, wait a minute. You're complaining about something as if you were here all the time. And I'm not just talking about physical. Some people are in the building and they ain't listening. You can't be in here daydreaming the whole time and think you can hear. You can't be in here thinking about your problems the whole time in the service. You can't be in here criticizing the whole service. You can't be in here nodding out the whole service because you're not listening. But God is talking. God doesn't waste no time. He tells us to redeem the time, to maximize every moment. What do you think he's doing? Every time we have a service, every time there's a conference call, God is saying something. So what happens is, and we've seen this in our life, we've seen this even in this church, how something will come up in a person's life. So they'll walk up in the council session, and while they're talking, we're looking like, that's already been, why didn't you apply this situation or this teaching or what have you? Well, what happens is the person wasn't there to teach it because that wasn't important to them. See, they was in the moment. They were making decisions for where they was at, and they didn't think that they can prepare for where they was going. So they missed the girl talk session. That girl talks, I'm good. And plus, I don't have time for that. That might be my sleep time, that might be whatever. So I don't have that hour. We talked about it in 9:15. We have, we only hear Sundays and Wednesdays for the most part. Wednesdays, at the most, as far as the word is concerned, we may be here an hour and a half. Maybe. Except for we have with the fast week, we may be here a little longer because ain't nothing for people to do, go home anyway. Because they ain't watching TV or nothing, right? But for the most part, hour and a half, Wednesday. We start 9:15 on Sundays. For the most part, we're done 12:15 to 12:30. That's 3 hours. At the most, 3 hours and a half if you throw in fellowship. 5 hours? We don't have 5 hours for God. And what are we doing? So do God need to remove some of the stuff we're doing so we have time for him? Oh, well, what I'll do is I'll get you a menial job at McDonald's and free you up and give you more time. Does that work better? You prayed for the job. God gave you the job. So you not spend time with him? That's your excuse to not spend time with God. It's 5 hours. Oh, I'm sorry. Throw in an hour, girl talk, guy talk, 6 hours. And God is saying something intentional. So who in the room thinks they can afford to miss out on what God has to say? And if you're dealing with stuff that you're working through, who's to say God didn't communicate what you needed in one of those 6 hours? Amen. But I'll get to that. I got something else more important to do. I got to get to such and such. You have to really start thinking through these things. Are we taking advantage of what God is affording us? Okay, then you have this. So you can have daydreaming. So you daydream sometime. Well, while you're daydreaming, God's talking. And sometimes you have to train yourself to be sensitive to God before you show up in the house of God. You can't spend all your time with the world thinking you're going to hear God. God could be singing and you can't feel him because it don't have the same bass line that some of the other music you're listening to. Right? God could be saturating an atmosphere for you with song, but you'll show up after the saturation. So now I got to bore through your heart to even get the word in. Because you didn't show up for the prep. Like when you go get surgery, there's an anesthesiologist that comes in before you even do the surgery. He's prepping you for the operation. But suppose you decide to miss that. Man, I'm just showing up for the operation, man. Ain't nobody got time for no anesthesiologist. I just want to sleep a little longer. So you show up just for the operation. Oh, you're going to feel some pain, ain't you? That's why sometimes that word, you be feeling pain, don't you? Because you skipped the anesthesiologist to praise and worship. So now the word coming, it'd be like, Pastor, back up off me, Pastor, that hurt. Yeah, because you wasn't in the atmosphere that saturated you. Because that wasn't important to you. Right? It's all intentional. Everything God does is intentional. Because it's what God thinks we need. And so we want to train ourselves to benefit of everything that God is exposing us to. Because you'll look back and you'll regret it and you'll wonder, what happened? When you're saying, I tried God, have you exposed yourself to everything that God gave you? So if something's missing, all you got to do is look back and say, is something missing in what I'm committing to, connecting to, and making sure I expose myself to? All that stuff is, remember we talked about layered learning? It's layered learning for a reason. Because you don't just get it because somebody gave you a sermon. You got to spend time reading at home. You got to spend time in worship. You got to spend time in fellowship. You got to spend time in asking that question and talking to that person. All that's layered learning is trying to get something to us. It helps us to hear. Someone told me a while ago, at the other church I was at, I think the sermons are too long. So the sermon would go, similar to ours, maybe 50 minutes to an hour. So I think it's too long. So they was used to a church where you go in, a whole lot of announcements, 15 minutes, you out of there, just inspire you for 15 minutes, you go. So I said, and then one of the pastors decided, okay, this is what we're going to do. People, the culture is not, what is it? Yeah, what it was, it's kind of a microwave society. Like, the attentiveness of the culture has changed. There ain't too many people sitting around listening to a sermon for an hour. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it back to a half hour. The interesting thing is you're assuming that everybody's coming in at the same time, and everybody's going to be attentive at the same time. So we all are at whatever time, 11:15, all of our attentiveness is up. And we're all going to be attentive to 11:30. Nobody's going to have to go to the bathroom. Nobody's going to be thinking about nothing else. Everybody's going to be like this, we was watching the other day, the Stepford Wives. Everybody be like Stepford Wives. 11:15. Got the information, then we all check out all at 11:45. Right? Then we all start daydreaming and stuff at the same time. That don't happen, do it? One person may be daydreaming at 11:15, another person may daydream at 11:30, somebody else may daydream at 11:25. They're different. So different people are going to catch different portions of the word at different times. So that's why you got to keep it consistent. You got to give them a whole time, because you never know which person that you're going to catch when it's locked in. You see that? You never know when they're listening. See, the thing is, we have to be listening. I learned as we grow as a couple, sometimes we had a serious situation, so I bring up, I was like, well, and I'm breaking it down. Y'all know I'm an exhaustive talker, right? So I was like, nah, babies, no, listen, no, and it was Friday. I'm telling you it was Friday. See, it was Friday because the game was coming on at 3. See, so once the game came on at 3, then you remember I got that phone call at 3:15. And when I got that phone call, that's when you decided you was going to cook, but then you got busy, forgot to check the food, and I went and checked it. Like, by the time I get through all that, she's like, what was we talking about? But I'm that type of person, right? So then my wife may go, I see what you're saying. I understand. I'm still rolling. So what I was trying to tell you now, I done explained it like 7 different ways. She got it the first time. But what it was is I wasn't listening. I was so busy trying to make sure she understood me at the expense of hearing her. Are we listening? And I watched. We was in a situation this week, I didn't tell her, but we was in a situation and it was something that was concerning her in the transaction we have to make. So she shared the concern and the person shared the solution. And so she shared the concern again. And then the person shared the solution. And I was sitting there going, I said, because I've been meditating on this message. I was like, wow, she didn't even listen. Because she shared the concern like 3 times. I was like, and I could see the person going, did she hear me? Because they wasn't guessing. They was like, oh, no, this is actually how this rolls. And she shared the concern again. I was like, wow. I was like, in the moment I was supposed to tell her when she got in the car, I said, baby, you wasn't listening to that person while they was talking? Like, you really wasn't listening. Because sometimes the weight of what could possibly happen negatively is clouding you from listening to what can happen positively.
That's true.
Because you're protecting yourself against the worst case scenario. As opposed to believing for the best case scenario. Are you listening? So you're dealing with a situation this week, you come into church, God is like, look at my child, they're going through this, I got you covered. You're at church? Oh, I'm about to give you what you need. So he's giving you what you need. Are you listening? Or are you spending your time going, but that situation, but suppose this happens. Like you got all your worst cases, it didn't happen yet. Newsflash. So you don't have to have faith for it, the worst case scenario. God is telling you, are you listening to him? Do you hear him? Do you believe in what he's saying? God is customizing exactly what you need. There's no wasted words. It can't be that simple. Why not? Why can't it be? It's God we're talking about. If he said you could take faith is a seed of a grain of mustard seed, move a mountain, why can't your situation just be as simple as knowing? Why can't it be that simple?